Hi, Tim.
Hey,
How Mexico makes you feel?
how does Mexico make me feel? Just in general, feelings that come up. Um, oh man, my only experience I've ever had in Mexico, I've been here for almost 10 years now, is in Mexico City. And so Mexico City, I realize, is a whole lot different than a lot of different places in Mexico. But my experience here, Mexico City makes me feel often happy, often frustrated, often still, even after all this time, often confused. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so can you tell me three words you associate with Mexico?
Yeah. Maybe they'll be the same as before, maybe not. But let's see. It's gonna be the same. The first one would be warmth, calidez, because Mexicans, and I think this is true of maybe not all Latin America, but many Latin Americans are very, very, very friendly and warm and open and welcoming, and so I think that's true. I have to pick three. Do I have to pick three? Okay, so
Like
warm.
tequila or something like that.
I'll go with one I mentioned a lot the day before. Color. There's a lot of color. I mean, not particularly here, but in general, like Mexico has a lot of color, and in general, not always, but in general, the United States, where I come from, there's a lot less variety of color everywhere, and it just tends to be a lot more boring and drab looking. And the last one would be, I won't say food, I'll say cuisine, because Mexico deserves that word, because there's just such incredible variety of good food here, and good unique food to Mexico.
Okay, can you tell me three issues you consider to be problematic in Mexico?
Yeah, sure. Just the easy ones that come to mind right away would be, in no particular order, the corruption that seems to be present at many levels in society, perhaps primarily in politics, but also in many other levels of society. Something that has to do with that is inefficiency. Mexico's not always inefficient, especially in Mexico City. Things tend to move more quickly here than in other parts of Mexico. But I think partially, or maybe largely, due to the corruption that I see, it can also be very hard to get things done. It can be very inefficient sometimes. And finally, I guess the obvious one, drug trafficking. Even though it's partly the fault of my country, but I'll still blame it on Mexico.
Can you tell me three positive characteristics you associate with Mexico?
Yeah. I'll in no particular order either. I'll go with the food first. I love the food. There are like three things that I don't like, and everything else I really, really enjoy. And I love how you can go to a different part of Mexico, and you basically just walk up to a local and say, like, what's good around here? And they're like, oh, let me take you to this restaurant. And chances are it'll be really cheap, really good, and slightly or very different from other Mexican food that you've tried. And I
Which
love
are
that.
the ones that you don't like?
I don't like. What is it? Is there a difference between pancita and menudo, or is it the same thing?
I think it's the same.
I don't know what's menudo, but
Pancita.
I don't like pancita.
though.
I don't like it either because of the texture.
It's like salad yellow.
Exactly. On that level, on that note, I don't like. ¿Cómo se llaman? Cueritos.
Yeah, burritos.
Me neither.
Those people like it. Because almost every weekend I'm at the Centro of Coyoacan, and like people are just like those giant things, and I'm just like,
It's like
you can have them.
It's like if you.
It's
would
pig feet,
eat
right?
Yeah.
It's congealed
Yeah.
pig feet. Ugh. But anyway, you guys, I do appreciate how generally Mexicans use everything on the animal. I just don't want to join in. I don't want to participate in eating everything of the animal, but I appreciate that you guys use it. But most everything I absolutely love. So food. So definitely food. I would even say specifically the language. I've loved getting to know Mexican Spanish better over the 10 years that I've been here, and you guys play with the language so much, and I really like that. It's a lot more, in general, it's a lot more interesting. I mean, obviously, just the fact that you guys have a hey. I'm going to say a dirty word because there's an actual book, and I know you guys know it exists, but like even the fact that the chingonario exists, it's hilarious because there's so many uses of that word, and it's such a big part of the culture, and that's kind of crude, but there are so many other ways, like, like, esa persona me cae gorda. It's like you imagine like a fat person falling on you, and you're like, I wouldn't like that either. And we just don't tend to have phrases like that in English. And so I love how you guys play with the language. I really like Mexican Spanish. So the language, the food, and cultural diversity. Just like in the United States, minorities here are generally not treated all that well, just like in the United States. However, there's still a wonderful variety of dialects and indigenous languages, as you guys know. And even just, so I guess, yeah, cultural diversity. And that manifests itself also in holidays. Like Day of the Dead is so interesting because it's such a, even though it's just Mexico, it's such a mixture of so many different things. Christmas, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Other holidays as well.
Yes. 3 words to define Mexicans.
Oof. I always feel like a racist when I answer this question because it's like I'm condensing all Mexicans into 3 words, which is really, really limiting. But that said, you asked me, so I'll give the first 3 that come to mind. I'm gonna go back to what I said, I think, in the first question. Warm. Like, if I could, definitely the first thing that comes to mind is like son muy cálidos, so very, very warm and welcoming in general. I forget what I said yesterday. There was a good answer. I'll do the third one, and then maybe I can come back to the second one if I can remember it. The third one that I mentioned yesterday was 2 positives and a negative. The negative is, and this is of course a stereotype about the culture, and I know it's not always true, but eager to please. And let me put that into context. Like, people, in the sense that people will often, not always, but there are a lot of people that be like, hey, are you going to my party? Yeah, because they don't want to say no, and then they have no intent of going. And
they don't go.
And I've gotten used to that over time. And I know that not everybody does that. There are some, like, plenty of Mexicans are like, yeah, I'm not going to go. Sorry, but it's kind of a stereotype about the culture that is often true, not always. So that's kind of negative. But that was the negative. The positive was the interpersonal warmth, and another one would be, in general, again, not always true, but you guys tend to be very patriotic, and I think it's endearing, and it makes me wonder why I'm not more patriotic for my own country. Because it's the 15th and 16th of September are so much fun here. It's like, even the fact that, like, the main thing on the 15th is like El Grito, like, there's just so much energy in it, and you guys are so happy to be Mexican, you're gonna yell about it, and I love that. And there's a lot of cynicism and shame about bad things in the country, but you guys tend to be very, like, you paint your faces, and in the United States it's boring. You're lucky if you can go to a barbecue and then maybe you'll watch fireworks, but it's just like, yay, America.
I went to 4th of July, and we did nothing. And I asked,
and that's pretty typical.
My uncles, why don't you celebrate or do food or something? And they said, no, we don't do anything.
Where do they live?
Wisconsin, Madison.
It's a college town. It's a pretty patriotic place. But that's typical. Like, where people are just like, oh yeah, it's 4th of July. Woohoo, let's get some hot dogs. Or, whoa, you guys calm down, you patriots. So yeah, I like Mexico better in that sense.
How your perception of Mexico changed after you came here?
I'm ready for this one. I've been here almost 10 years. This August of 2018 will be 10 years, which is crazy to think about. And my perspective has changed a great deal. When I came here, it was like I've been in a 10-year relationship with the country. Okay, so I came here and I fell madly in love with the country. A specific person too, but first the country. And then, as often happens, even if you stay with a person, you eventually fall out of love, and hopefully the love grows deeper because you get to know them better, and you kind of get disappointed, but then you realize you accept them for their good stuff and their bad stuff, and that's what's happened to me. Like, I went through, after 3 or 4 years here, all, like, the cute novelties that happened at the beginning, where it's like, oh, there's a lot of traffic, and, like, you can't get anywhere on time. That stuff really started to annoy me, and, like, and then I'd say maybe 2-3 years, and only recently I've kind of gotten out of that, and I've fallen out of love with Mexico, but I've grown to love Mexico more deeply. And I think the reason for that is like I love Mexico for the good things, but I've also learned to love it despite its shortcomings, because every country has them. So
The similarities and differences between your home country and Mexico.
the questions before have just been similarities and differences. It was such a difficult question before because I can't really think, especially right now with Trump as president. I can't. It's hard for me to think, and it's been 10 years since I've lived there. I'm really not that familiar with my own country anymore. Like I see it from outside the fishbowl, like you guys do, because you're not Americans either. Well, we're all Americans, right? But you're not, citizens of the United States, and you don't live there. It's like I'm still metaphorically scratching my head, saying, "What the heck happened a year ago when Trump got elected?" I still don't get it. I really don't. I understand it better now, but I just felt like, man, I really don't know my country anymore. I know it was like really divided. More than half the country didn't even vote for him, but still, in certain areas of the country, there is an interpersonal warmth, especially in the South. It's a stereotype, and it's not always true, but oftentimes people in the South are very friendly, as Mexicans tend to be, but not always. And you go to certain parts of the United States, and people are like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like they don't come across as friendly at all. You have to get to know them. Differences, oh man, so many differences now. But I don't know. Maybe too many differences to. Well, maybe one other similarity, and this is perhaps more negative. Mexico doesn't treat its minorities well. It doesn't treat its indigenous minorities well. It treats them horribly in general, and that's the same in the United States. I would be a horrible hypocrite if I didn't say it's despicable how we've treated, our indigenous population as well. We almost killed them all, but we didn't kill them. We gave them, little horrible little spots of land in the middle of nowhere where they couldn't farm, and they basically died off. They're all drug addicts, and so I mean we've been horrible people too. So that's kind of a depressing similarity that I've seen. Differences, I don't know. Just in general, Mexico feels more open and free, and I feel more free, ironically, here to be who I want to be, as opposed to in the United States, where people are more like, "Wait, hold on, you gotta be awkward and fit in." And I don't know. It's you kind of threw me a curveball on that one, because up until now, everyone has just asked me about the differences, similarities, not the differences. So I'm not really prepared to talk about the differences, but I'm sure there are a lot.
Okay, Mexican cultural feature you find the most interesting?
Cultural feature. This might not be my best answer, but I'm going to go back to food, because again, there's just so much diversity of food that is 100% unique to Mexico. Like you go even to Guatemala, and you're not going to find the same stuff. You certainly go to the United States, and you're not going to find the same stuff. And you even go to different areas of Mexico, and it's all 100% Mexican food, but it's got its own like twist to it.
Yeah, even we get surprised when we go to another states and find different types of food.
Exactly, because every single state has its. Not even every region. Every state has its. Like what it's known for. I mean, it might be just Hidalgo, and sorry Hidalgo, because they're really just known for pastes. That's okay though, blame the British for those. but yeah, for the most part, and that's not even really Mexican. Like those were like for the British miners who came to Pachuca, right? But anyway, the stuff that's like Mexican is better than that stuff. But yeah.
And what would you say to Mexicans as a whole, if given the opportunity to do so?
I would say, because I know that not everybody at Tech struggles from malinchismo, but a lot of people do, just because of I tend to see it here, primarily because people tend to have more money, and so it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. They've generally been to other countries. They have the money to buy foreign brands here too that are often better, but not always. But I would just say, when it's appropriate, when you're being ashamed of Mexico for the wrong reasons, it's just like everything Mexican is terrible, just go buy foreign for everything. You should be ashamed of that, and you should be more proud of your country in those senses. Certainly be ashamed of the bad things in Mexico, just like everybody should be about the bad things in their own country. But yeah, malinchismo is overrated.
That's it, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you, team.
Oh, you're welcome.